So, when you hear the word Rastafari, what often springs to mind?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Perhaps it's the iconic dreadlocks, maybe the vibrant red, gold, and green colors.
Oh, the music, right. The universally recognized rhythms of reggae. The legend, Bob Marley.
Exactly. For many people, those powerful images are kind of the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
But what if I told you that beneath these, well, these well-known symbols, lies a movement that's far more intricate, really dynamic, and globally influential than most people ever realize?
Yeah, a profound spiritual and social force,
Hmm.
one that's quietly yet powerfully reshaped how people understand identity, liberation, faith, all across the globe.
It really is. It's a reality that challenges those popular perceptions and takes us way beyond the easily consumable stuff.
Absolutely. And that's what we're doing today. We're taking a deep dive into this extraordinary collection of insights on Rastafari. We're drawing from a really pivotal 2008 academic volume. It's titled Globalisation of Rastafari IDAZ Vol 7. And this isn't just, a book. It's a compilation of rigorous academic studies, some deeply personal interviews. It really peels back the layers.
So we're talking about perspectives from scholars across different fields.
Exactly. Religious studies, anthropology, sociology, cultural studies, all grappling with the global footprint of Rastafari, especially how it evolves and adapts, sometimes in really unexpected ways.
Okay, so our mission today is to unpack how this movement, born in the Caribbean, has not only woven itself into the fabric of all these different cultures worldwide, but has also evolved, adapted, challenging existing social structures, sparking these vital conversations about identity, liberation, faith, wherever it lands.
Yeah, we're going to explore what it truly means for Rastafari to be a global phenomenon, looking at it from both the scholars and the practitioners' points of view.
Think of this as getting a kind of Rastafari Studies 3.0 perspective.
That's a good way to put it.
Trying to get a holistic, nuanced understanding of its evolving global presence. Moving beyond some of those earlier, maybe sometimes limited scholarly reports that didn't always capture its dynamism.
Right, because it's not static. And this volume, with its diverse contributors, it really represents an ongoing academic, almost like a global council, dedicated to understanding this complex living movement.
I like that, a global council.
It's precisely that. This volume actually emerged from a seminar of the American Academy of Religion, and the aim was explicit. Foster more ethnographic work, increase self-awareness among scholars about how Rastafari's global context should reshape their whole methodology.
So a deliberate step forward.
A collective one, yeah. To understand a movement that just defies easy categorization.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. How did this profound Caribbean consciousness actually start its global journey? It's easy to think of the Caribbean as, isolated islands.
Small islands.
But the sources we're looking at make it crystal clear that the region, right from the moment Columbus arrived, has always been what some call a small world, deeply interconnected globally. What does that interconnectedness really mean for its history?
That's a crucial starting point. Politically, Caribbean territories were never truly isolated. They were consistently strategic pawns in these competing European economic military battles.
Right.
Their fate wasn't just about periphery and center. It was about complex, often brutal relationships with various centers of power: Britain, France, Spain, the Netherlands initially.
And later?
Later, the U.S. and the USSR, those geopolitical forces.
Yeah.
Economically, the region's prosperity never relied on internal markets. Never. It was always tied to global markets, international tariff agreements, the global viability of successive monocrops like sugar, coffee, bananas.
So always looking outward economically.
Always. Even the plantation systems, which were basically proto-industrial factories, they were rationalized to maximize wealth for owners on a global scale. And today, it's global tourism, right? Carefully designed to brand the Caribbean experience.
Which again means cultural capital flows out.
Flows out, consumed by external markets. So this deep historical entanglement means the Caribbean has always been this place where global forces converged and clashed. A real crucible.
And the population itself tells an incredibly global story too, doesn't it? You mentioned Columbus.
Absolutely. Since then, the Caribbean population has been this truly global mix. You got Africans, Asians, Native Americans, Europeans, all arriving through various forced or voluntary migrations.
And these groups weren't just, passive victims of global trade and slaves or indentured servitude.
No, not just victims. After those systems ended, they continued to be a source for exporting global labor. Think about Caribbean workers digging the Panama Canal, or serving as inexpensive migrant laborers in other parts of the Americas. But through all this, the Caribbean wasn't just exporting labor, it was also, as you said, a crucible. A vibrant mixing pot where different ways of seeing, thinking, different cultural, spiritual traditions blended, evolved, creating truly innovative ideas that then spread out across the world.
And Caribbean religion itself is a powerful example of this, right? This intense globalization.
Exactly. Christianity has thrived there in so many forms.
Mm-hmm.
Colonial forms, indigenous adaptations, new enthusiastic expressions that came via foreign missions, and then migrated globally with their congregations. Hindu and Muslim communities also have a long history there, actively preserving their identities through religion, despite colonial pressures.
And then the syncretic religions.
Most significantly for our discussion, yes. So-called syncretic religions, like Rastafari, blend African and Christian ideas, practices, creating new traditions that continue to expand as believers join new diasporas.
And these movements don't just spread religious ideas?
No, they inspire art, literature, music worldwide. They fundamentally shape global popular culture. It's a huge impact.
So Rastafari fits right into this syncretic tradition, drawing heavily from Christian sources, the Bible especially,
Absolutely central.
but placing Africa squarely at the core of its worldview. What's really fascinating, I think, is how Rastafari has always been acutely aware of the world outside the Caribbean,
Yes, very aware.
often seeing it as harsh, a kind of vampire world, what they call Babylon.
That potent term, yeah. For any oppressive system, racism, economic exploitation, hardship, that just sucks the life out of people.
But Africa remains this spiritual paradise, a moral norm.
Exactly, a norm against which this Babylon can be critiqued. And early Rasta leaders, like Leonard Howell, they'd traveled extensively outside the Caribbean. They experienced this global Babylon firsthand.
So that shaped their vision.
Profoundly. And it's also why Marcus Garvey is so revered as a Rasta prophet. He spoke with an awareness not just of the Caribbean situation, but of the global Black condition, a consciousness he gained from his own travels across the world.
Okay, so when we talk about Rastafari's globalization, how did it actually spread? The sources highlight two major pathways.
Yes, two major interconnected pathways. The first, and this is often overlooked, is migration.
Right. Not just the music, then.
No, Michael Barnett's work specifically challenges that popular idea that reggae music was the primary initial driver. He emphasizes the significant waves of Jamaican migration to England in the 1950s.
Like the Windrush generation.
Exactly, the famous Windrush ship in 1948, bringing hundreds of Caribbean migrants to help rebuild post-WWII Britain, and then to North America in the 1960s. These migrants, many already adherents or who became adherents, they were powerful living agents of cultural transfer.
That's a key point, so people carrying the faith with them.
Precisely. There's this illustrative detail. Early Rastafari meetings were happening in places like Notting Hill, London, as early as 1958.
Wow, that early. Years before Marley and reggae became huge internationally.
Years before. Imagine these small private gatherings. A quiet spiritual revolution already brewing beneath the surface of post-war Britain, laid down by those who literally carried their faith across the ocean.
That's a crucial insight, the physical movement of people sowing the seeds.
Yeah.
But while migration laid a lot of the groundwork, we absolutely cannot ignore the immense role of reggae music.
Oh, absolutely not. From the 70s through the 90s, reggae truly became a global ambassador for Rastafari. It carried the messages, the I and I philosophy, the symbols, that spiritual urgency.
Everywhere.
From Auckland to Zimbabwe, everywhere. Reggae provided the soundtrack to a global awakening, you could say.
Definitely. But beyond these more maybe organic pathways, were there deliberate efforts to spread it?
Yes. Rasta leaders also actively spread the movement through organized missions, consciously reaching out both to nearby Eastern Caribbean islands and much farther afield, Canada, Brazil, South Africa.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that shows a deliberate, conscious effort to globalize, not just a passive spread.
Exactly.
This brings us to a fundamental challenge the sources really grapple with. How do you even define Rastafari?
It's tricky.
Academics often try to categorize it narrowly, right? Fixed beliefs, practices, maybe just labeling it a religion.
Yeah, but as the sources argue, this can contradict how Rastas see themselves. They frequently describe it not as some static doctrine, but as a way of life, a dynamic, lived experience.
Right.
Richard Salter, who's a key contributor to this volume, proposes a more flexible, maybe more unifying framework.
Orthognosy.
Orthognosy. Okay,
Right.
what does that mean exactly?
It basically means correct knowledge.
Okay.
What's fascinating here is that Salter suggests this correct knowledge emerges not from strict dogma, but from a mystical revelation of the I, the self, the divine within which he sees as the root of what it means to be human.
So the key insight is that Rastafari isn't this rigid dogma. It's more like a deep personal truth, an intuitive knowing.
Precisely. And that allows it to adapt and resonate across vastly different cultures without losing its core essence. Right, that explains the flexibility, the broad appeal. It allows for variations in external practices.
Exactly. Whether it's the specific worship of Emperor Haile Selassie III or living an idle life, natural, pure, or particular forms of drumming,
Hmm.
while maintaining a core understanding of self and world. Decisions about these practices are often made at the individual level, but crucially in concert with others in their reasoning session.
Those communal discussions.
Yeah, those communal critical discussions designed to achieve clarity. This mystical knowledge, this orthognosy, is what makes Rasta symbolism intelligible and appealing across such varied contexts and groups of people.
And this dynamic, evolving nature. The dub poet Mutabaruka captures that really well, doesn't he?
Perfectly. He's quoted in the sources saying, "No one Rasta can talk for every Rasta, and no five Rastas can talk for every Rasta."
Wow.
It just emphasizes the movement's decentralized, evolving, non-static nature. He explicitly says that reports from the 60s, or even seminal books like Joseph Owen's Dread, they're no longer fully valid.
Because Rastafari is constantly evolving.
It's in a constant state of evolution. It's not static. He describes it like a ladder. They're always stepping up, continually redefining, deepening their understanding. The truths are lived and discovered, not just received from on high.
A ladder, they're always stepping up. I like that image. So, if Rastafari is this flexible, evolving orthognosy, how does that internal fluidity relate to the broader concept of globalization itself?
Yeah, that's a great question. The sources discuss this through sociologist Roland Robertson's framework of globalization.
Globalization, okay, bit of an academic term.
It is, but the concept is actually pretty intuitive.
Yeah.
It's the idea that global consciousness involves two divergent yet simultaneous trends: universalization and particularization.
Okay, break that down. Universalization is.
That's the trend where national identities become less absolute. People form connections to larger trans-societal realities, fostering a universal notion of humanity, the global human rights movements, environmentalism.
Got it. And particularization.
That's the flip side. An increased concern for individuals to identify closely with specific groups, cultures, ethnicities. It's why, in a globalized world, you might see a resurgence of local dialects or traditions.
So both happening at the same time.
Simultaneously, the global context is marked by this awareness of both universalism and particularism, with individuals increasingly choosing where they locate themselves between these poles.
And Rastafari typically embodies this global consciousness in a really profound way.
Absolutely. They understand themselves as both products of and active participants in a wider world. They articulate identities as I's, Africans, Ethiopians, and remember histories that completely transcend national boundaries.
Like the Middle Passage, the diaspora.
Exactly. The brutality of slavery, Haile Selassie I's coronation, even unsettling details like Pope Pius IX blessing the Italian invasion of Ethiopia. By doing this, they denounce those dominant historical narratives that try to confine them to limited settings. They create and assert an alternative global consciousness.
The implication here is profound, then. This isn't just academic theory.
Not at all. It perfectly explains why Rastafari's I consciousness is so remarkably well suited to global spread,
How so?
because it emphasizes this particularly egalitarian notion of selfhood. Each individual inherently possesses divinity, can connect to a universal truth, regardless of their specific location, national origin, even their physical appearance.
That resonates deeply in a globalizing world.
Totally. Where traditional identities are often being reevaluated,
Yeah.
and people are seeking deeper, more universal connections while still wanting to honor their specific heritage.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so now we've explored how Rastafari's core identity allows it to adapt across cultures. Let's explore how this global philosophy actually manifests in specific regions.
Right. Let's see how it localizes.
How it adapts its universal message to confront local challenges but still holds onto core principles. Our first stop, Cuba, a unique socialist state where Rastafari faces really distinctive circumstances.
Yeah, Samuel Furious Davis's research highlights the conceptual and practical difficulties of studying Rastafari there.
Because core Rasta concepts like African identity, race consciousness, they clash with Cuban revolutionary ideals.
Exactly. They run directly counter to the official ideals of having eliminated racism, fostering a unified, raceless society. This raises fascinating questions, like how is Babylon, the oppressive system, refigured in socialist Cuba?
Does this still mean capitalism and Western racism?
Or does the constant threat of U.S. imperialism against Cuba shift its meaning? Broaden it, maybe, to include any perceived oppressive system, even aspects of the state itself.
Interesting. And the very definition of religion is complex there, too.
Very complex.
Yeah.
Official institutions like Cuba's Council of Churches or the Yoruba Cultural Association generally don't classify Rastafari as a religion, mainly because of the sacramental ganja use and the belief in Haile Selassie as divine.
But academics are interested.
Quite interested as an alternative culture or lifestyle, especially its musical and visual symbols influencing youth.
And its social status in Cuba has been quite a journey, right? Initially seen as maybe neglected, even dishonored.
Yeah, often linked to marijuana use, perceived crime, largely marginal. But intriguingly, during the special period in the 90s, that time of severe economic hardship after the Soviet bloc fell, Rastafari gained significant cultural prominence.
Really? Why then?
It seems it became an appealing cultural force, offering a counter-narrative, a sense of identity, especially through its music and visuals, which resonated with a generation looking for new forms of expression in a tough time.
And the term Afro itself is charged in Cuba.
Very charged in that officially raceless society. Afro-Cuban acknowledges African heritage, sure, but Rastafari's explicit black pride, embracing blackness, even for adherents who aren't visibly black, that challenges the homogenized Cuban identity.
Which historically tried to whiten blackness.
Exactly. Rastas in Cuba consciously try not to reproduce those social problems, like slow upward mobility, the whitening of blackness, or black self-denigration. They even extend the term Rasta to white and fair-skinned brethren who reject Eurocentric views on race and beauty.
Affirming it's about consciousness, not skin color.
Precisely. A unity of I and I that transcends those traditional racial divides.
That's a powerful statement. But Fure Davis also mentions practical research barriers.
Significant barriers. Beyond the conceptual stuff, there are financial shortages from the special period. Researchers face challenges like the idealization of the foreigner, which can sometimes lead to the sale of information for dollars or goods.
Complicating the research.
Definitely. On top of that, U.S.-Cuba political tensions severely hinder academic exchange. Cuban scholars, like Fure Davis himself, often get denied visas to present their work at international conferences in the U.S.
Limiting that global dialogue.
Severely limiting it.
Okay, let's move continents now. To Salvador, Bahia, Brazil. Here, Rastafari confronts deep-seated historical oppression, but with a unique Bahian flavor.
Yes, Bahia. Majority African-descended population, stark example of persistent institutional racism, poverty, despite that national myth of racial equality.
And the Pelourinho district.
A powerful symbol, historic site of slave whipping. History hangs heavy there.
Yeah.
Ross Carlos, a Rastafari ghetto leader interviewed in the sources, he made this incredibly stark comparison.
What was it?
He compared Brazilian favelas, the sprawling informal settlements, to Auschwitz, highlighting the systemic oppression, the constant shedding of blood he saw. It's designed to shock, to awaken.
Wow. That's incredibly stark. It really drives home the reality. And Rastafari arrived at Bahia mainly through reggae.
Primarily through reggae, yes.
Huh.
And Yonda Cosmos research shows diverse forms emerging there. Some adherents focus solely on Jah Rastafari, keeping it singular.
But others blend it.
Yes, demonstrating profound syncretism, blending Rasta expressions with the Orixes, the spirits of Afro-Brazilian candomblé, creating this hybridized spiritual practice that's uniquely Bahian.
That syncretism is a key adaptation then, showing how the orthognosy adapts locally.
Exactly. Bahian Rastafari fundamentally reject Babylon, which they define as globalized capitalism, the white man's system, the forces perpetuating poverty and racism.
And they embrace Africa values instead, often visibly.
Often visibly, through dreadlocks tattoos. Ross Carlos, for instance, described his tattoos as words of wisdom. They signified his rejection of skin color as primary identity, embodying a living mural of African roots on his skin.
And he rejected capitalism outright.
Outright, he declared, "I do not believe in capitalism. Capitalism was taken away from my life. I live theocracy." It's not just cultural. It's a profound spiritual, economic, political rejection of the whole world order. A commitment to different values.
What's really fascinating here is how they navigate this concept of homelessness.
Yes, like early Jamaican Rastafari. Grappling with being displaced, not just physically, but spiritually, culturally, from ancestral lands.
And they use what's called a pariah strategy.
Yeah, drawing on Weber and Arndt, creating dignity by identifying as God's chosen, retrieving ancient cultural inheritance, projecting future power despite their current marginalization. Bob Andy's classic song, This Couldn't Be My Home, just captures that sentiment perfectly. That yearning for a true homeland, a spiritual Zion beyond borders.
And their resistance, it's not always overtly political organization.
No.
Yeah.
While they express dismay at the lack of political organization among Afro-Bayans, their resistance is often channeled through powerful cultural symbols, through reggae music. They see reggae as a war against the system.
Emphasizing dignity, challenging violence culturally.
Exactly. For them, revolution isn't necessarily a violent coup. It's more like Joseph Owens noted about Jamaican Rastafari. A change of heart or mind, a psychocultural demystification. An everyday resistance to oppression, as Louis Lindsay explained it. It's a revolution of consciousness, shifting the very ground beneath Babylon's feet.
A revolution of consciousness. That's a profound distinction. Okay, now let's journey to a completely different part of the world. Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Right.
Here, Edward Takohu Douglas and Ian Boxall detail how Rastafari, again, primarily introduced by Bob Marley's music and messages, adapted among the indigenous Maori people. And what stands out immediately, quite uniquely, is how Rastafari in Aotearoa often lost its core Afrocentric focus.
Exactly. That's a key difference. Instead of emphasizing Africa as the geographical and spiritual homeland, it was powerfully adapted as a new context for resistance against the ongoing loss of Maori identity to Anglo assimilation.
So using Rasta framework for Maori resistance.
Precisely. You see examples like the Ruatoria Rastafari incorporating distinctive Maori cultural practices like facial tattooing, the moko, to express their Rastafari experience. It became a way for Maori youth to re-indigenize, reclaim their identity within a global framework.
Seeking identity, rejecting Pakeha Jesus.
Rejecting Eurocentric Christianity, yeah. And finding profound connection to the anti-colonial messages in reggae. The rhythms, the lyrics, they resonated deeply with their own historical struggles.
And their beliefs became truly syncretic, a blend of traditions.
A fascinating blend. The Ruatoria Dreads combine Maori's self-determination rhetoric, teachings from Hahiringatu, which is a Maori messianic religion, and traditional Rastafari symbol.
For instance, their Mount Zion isn't Ethiopia.
No. They hold this powerful belief that Mount Hikurangi, their sacred mountain, is their Mount Zion. Repatriation for them means freedom from Pakeha British settler bondage and a return to their own ancestral lands. A Garden of Eden right there in the Waiapu Valley.
Wow, a complete reframing of Zion and repatriation to fit their indigenous context.
It's a profound localization. And practical, too. Some groups, like the Ahiites, took concrete steps towards self-reliance. Formed charitable trusts to grow food, conduct skills training, build community. Aiming for independence from the system, the Pakeha-dominated society.
And ganja takes on a localized meaning, too.
Beyond the universal ritual significance, yes. For Ruatoria Dreads, its use symbolizes independence, sovereignty, asserting their right to grow what they want on their ancestral land. They even rationalize eating normally prescribed foods like pork and shellfish through their ancestral and Ringatu teachings.
Showing that orthodoxy adapting again.
Incredible flexibility in practice.
But despite this deep commitment, this unique adaptation, they face challenges, hostility.
Significant challenges, yeah. Hostility, rejection, skepticism from non-Rasta Maori, wider society. Often seen as just playing Rasta or linked to drug abuse, crime, rather than a serious spiritual and cultural movement.
But they're connecting with other movements now.
What's fascinating is they've begun connecting with other spiritual resistance movements in Aotearoa. Finding common ground with Hahiringatu adherents who recognize similarities between their founder, Tekudi, and Marcus Garvey.
That cross-cultural solidarity.
It's a powerful testament to the adaptable, unifying nature of the Rasta message. Finding allies in shared struggles for self-determination.
Okay, finally, in this section on regional expressions, let's turn to the Jamaican diaspora in England, Canada, and the USA.
Right, Michael Barnett's work details this extensively. Rastafari's expansion into these areas, especially through migration waves, faced deep-seated racism, ethnocentrism.
So mainstream society, the media, often portrayed them negatively, as criminal.
Often portrayed them not as spiritual adherents, but as violent, criminal subcultures, which contributed to immense social friction.
And the sources give some really chilling examples of this, like sensationalized Hollywood movies.
Yeah, Marked for Death, depicting Rastas as ruthless drug lords. Influential TV shows like 60 Minutes contributing to the damaging stereotype. In the U.S., the NYPD even produced this notorious Rasta crime, a confidential report back in '83.
A police report. What did it say?
Unbelievably, it linked Rastafari to Marxist groups, Cuban terrorists, rampant violence. Even alleged members were being sent to Cuba for guerrilla warfare training.
That's incredible. And the media fueled this fear.
Often did, labeling events like multiple killings in Brooklyn as Rasta's Easter massacres in '77, directly associating the movement with widespread crime. It was a deliberate campaign of fear, misrepresentation.
And official bodies didn't help, even the Jamaican High Commission.
Often amplified it, yeah. British authorities initially condemned Rastas, and perhaps most ambivalently, the Jamaican High Commission itself, instead of defending its citizens, advised the British government that dreadlocks and ganja weren't valid religious symbols in Jamaica.
Wow, that actually contributed to persecution abroad.
Ironically, yes, by denying their spiritual legitimacy. Though, eventually, sustained public pressure, the undeniable spread of the movement, forced official recognition. But the stereotypes lingered.
Within these diaspora communities, we also see different organizational forms emerge, the mansions.
Yes, groups like the 12 Tribes of Israel, Nyabingi, the Ethiopian African Black International Congress. Yeah. They established a significant presence in cities like New York, providing structure, community.
And links to Ethiopia itself.
The Ethiopian World Federation, EWF, and the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, EOC, were important links to African identity for some, a more formalized connection. Though it's worth noting, others within the movement criticized their hierarchical structures, their rejection of Haile Selassie Tusker's divinity.
Highlighting that ongoing reasoning and diversity again.
Always. The sources even mention the Ethiopian Zion Coptic Church, a more marginal mansion. Their high-profile legal struggles over sacramental marijuana use, especially in Florida, brought that whole issue of religious freedom versus drug laws right to the forefront.
And what about Canada? Was there a shift there?
A notable shift, according to Horace Campbell's research. Pervasive police infiltration weakened Black community organizations. So the movement transformed. Politically oriented Rastas became less prominent. It took on a more religiously oriented, almost apolitical stance. Adherents seeking spiritual refuge rather than political confrontation.
Interesting. But elsewhere, like South Florida, there was a strong preservation of Jamaican practices.
Very strong preservation. Fieldwork in Miami and Homestead revealed this deep retention of Jamaican nuances in Rastafari practices. Ceremonies there felt profoundly, authentically Jamaican, despite being in the U.S., showing the powerful pull of cultural roots even across continents.
That's fascinating. Can you give us a more detailed picture? What were those ceremonies like to really get that sense of Jamaicanness abroad?
Sure. Take a Nyabingi session attended in Redlands, Florida for Haile Selassie III's coronation day. The journey itself was part of it, a muddy dirt track reaching this secluded compound, a deliberate act of seeking a sacred, kind of hidden space. You'd see this red glow from a bonfire piercing the night sky, signaling the gathering like an ancient call. At the entrance, a huge Rastafari flag, the imperial Ethiopian one standing proudly, the air thick with the distinct smell of ganja, the sacrament.
And inside the tabernacle?
Drummers pounding out that familiar Rastafari heartbeat rhythm, hypnotic pulse, shakers accompanying, leading the chanting of hymns that just reverberated through the night. Women, the sistren, were noticeably on the periphery by the bonfire or to the left of the tabernacle, often with infants, maintaining a traditional spatial separation.
So they didn't play the drums?
Not in these specific ceremonies traditionally, but they could actively accompany with shakers, adding their rhythm to the collective worship. It was just this immersion in a deeply rooted, highly structured spiritual experience.
A very traditional structured gathering then. What about the Bobo Shanti services? Similar or different?
The Bobo Shanti House in Miami held services weekly on Saturdays, unlike the Nyabingi, which were for special occasions. Their tabernacle was elaborately painted, red, gold, green, images of the Bobo Trinity Selassie VI, Garvey, Prince Emmanuel Charles Edwards on the walls, visually reinforcing their core beliefs.
Okay.
And before entering the main hall, attendees had to empty their pockets completely, leave behind what they called Babylonian possessions, keys, ID cards, especially money.
Wow, that's a powerful symbol, shedding the outside world before entering Zion.
A very powerful symbol. And the Bobo flag itself was unique reversed color sequence, stars instead of the lion, signaling their distinct identity.
What about the service inside, the structure?
Congregants would bow in silent prayer facing east, the spiritually significant direction. then pay respects to the 7 priests presiding at the front and to the rest of the congregation, acknowledging the collective I and I. They take a prayer mat, prostrate themselves, still facing east, deep reverence.
And segregation.
Clear segregation. Men on the left, women and children on the right. Based on their interpretation of scriptural purity and roles, members wore long, flowing white robes, white turbans, sometimes red, gold, green scarves, a very unified, dignified look.
And the service involved readings, hymns.
Priests took turns reading psalms, congregation responding, Holy Emmanuel Hers, Selassie Rai, Jah Rastafari. Hymns sung to drum rhythms, often with high priests turning their backs to the congregation to face east as they led, emphasizing that direct connection to Jah. Sermons emphasized preparation for repatriation to Africa, pay tribute to their godhead. The fieldwork really affirmed the Jamaicaness, the authenticity, the diaspora diligently preserving these nuances, traditions, like a living cultural archive.
Fascinating. It's clear that while Rastafari globalizes and adapts, it also holds on to these incredibly deep roots and distinct cultural practices. Now, let's shift focus to something almost synonymous with Rastafari in the public mind.
Ganja? Oh yes, the sacred herb.
It's been at the center of both ritual and intense legal battles, a real flashpoint. Samuel Merle's work dives deep into this complex relationship.
It does. And ganja, marijuana, has a long, complex history way before Rastafari. It was widely used as folk medicine, culinary ingredient, among Indian immigrants in the Caribbean, Trinidad, Guyana, Jamaica, since the mid-1800s.
Used for what, medically?
Treating asthma, stomach disorders, fevers, glaucoma, demonstrating its traditional medicinal value. But with Rastafari emerging in the 1930s, ganja took on this new, profound role, a religious sacrament.
Right. Leonard Howell's Pinnacle Hill Commune.
Extensively cultivated it for ritual use, viewing it as God's creation, a natural herb, referencing Genesis verses like 1.1, herb yielding seed, and 3.18, thou shalt eat the herb of the field.
So not just recreational, deeply spiritual, a connection to the divine.
Rastas believe it enhances meditation, provides clarity of thought during reasoning sessions.
Those communal discussions for wisdom.
Exactly. And helps them connect with Jah during Nabingi services. It's seen as a way to soothe the troubled mind, open the inner eye, facilitate spiritual insight.
But this sacred use led directly to intense criminalization, persecution.
Turn a spiritual practice into a legal weapon, essentially. The Jamaican police weaponized dangerous drugs charges against Rastas, a primary political tool. Mass arrests followed. Howell arrested in 38 at Pinnacle, Claudius Henry in 59.
And this criminalization fueled stereotypes.
Enduring stereotypes in the media. Rastas as ganja pushers, violent dreadlocked gangsters, even a menace and threat to national security, often used to justify state repression.
And this persecution wasn't just in Jamaica, it went global.
Became a global issue, yeah. Similar criminalization in Britain, the U.S., contributing to racial clashes, unfair portrayals, British media painting Rastas as street gangs, which regrettably contributed to social tensions, riots in Handsworth 77, Brixton 81.
A direct, dangerous link between misrepresentation and real-world harm. But despite all this, the Legalize It movement, famously championed by Peter Tosh,
became a global anthem for Rasta rights, broader drug law reform, gaining significant momentum. There's growing support for legalization from medical professionals, politicians, Rasta adherents, for scientific, medical, or religious reasons.
What about in the U.S. and Canada?
In the U.S., Norm LL petitioned to reclassify marijuana way back in '72. Led to things like the Compassionate Use Program in '78, allowing medical use for specific patients, a small crack in the prohibition wall. Canada has moved significantly to loosen marijuana laws, even famously awarding that contract to grow medical marijuana in a former nuclear bunker, the Diffin Bunker.
The Diffin Bunker, right. And Jamaica itself, the birthplace.
Took significant steps. The Jamaica Ganja Commission in 2001 recommended decriminalizing private personal use and religious sacramental use, acknowledging medicinal benefits. But they had to balance this progressive stance with international relations concerns, especially the U.S. war on drugs, pressuring countries to keep strict prohibition.
Which brings us to a crucial, maybe surprising, internal debate within Rastafari itself.
Yes, there's no monolithic view on ganja use.
Really?
Mutabaruka, the renowned dub poet, is very explicit. One does not have to smoke ganja to be Rasta.
Wow. He sees the drug religion idea as
a misconception sent by Babylon to cause distraction.
Yeah.
He argues ganja doesn't inherently enhance reasoning power. Famously stated, no clouds of smoke could reveal Jah Rastafari to him. True connection comes from within, from that orthogoncy.
So a direct counter-narrative to the popular image shows that deep internal diversity.
Exactly. And Bob Marley's song Easy Skankin' offers a nuanced perspective too, suggesting some Rastas use it to take a lift from reality, implying an escapist element for some, not purely spiritual or meditative, acknowledging the human element, varied motivations.
And this internal diversity complicates legal battles.
Hugely. Court cases worldwide Zimbabwe on dreadlocks, U.S., Jamaica, South Africa on ganja consistently debate religious freedom versus drug laws. The concept of sincerity of belief becomes crucial. Can the individual prove their use is truly religious?
But that's hard to prove if the religion doesn't sharply distinguish secular and religious activities.
Precisely. A South African judge asked a defendant, when is it religious use? When is it unlawful social use? The Rasta individuals struggle to answer convincingly because in their integrated livity, their holistic way of life, there isn't always that sharp distinction. All of life, potentially, is an act of worship.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's delve into Rastafari as a revolutionary and liberating force. Leslie James argues there's this powerful convergence between Paulo Freire's work, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and Rasta's central practice of reasoning.
Yes, and it's not just an academic parallel. It's
Yeah.
about how Rastafari actually empowers people. Freire's theory wasn't just about teaching. It was about liberating the marginalized, empowering them to critically shape their own history, moving from being objects of history to subjects.
And James sees reasoning as that kind of process.
Exactly. As a gnosiological process, a deep way of knowing, understanding, aimed at liberating the mind. It's a form of conscientization, a process where Rastas critically discuss beliefs, sacred texts, current events.
Helping individuals gain historical awareness, negate false consciousness.
Yes, negating that internalized oppression, that distorted view of reality, achieving authentic self-knowledge, thereby setting the oppressed free. It actively subverts the culture of silence that often stifles marginalized voices, replacing it with active, critical dialogue.
So it's not just protesting the current system, it's actively building something new.
Absolutely. Rastafari isn't merely a religion of protest, resisting dominant culture. James calls it a constructive religion of integration, promoting a positive vision of freedom, solidarity, contributing to a new world order from the bottom up, built on justice, human dignity, not just tearing down the old.
And central to this liberating force is the powerful I and I philosophy.
It's so powerful. The Rasta use of I and I language is this radical subversion of the historical master-slave relationship, which stripped people of humanity. And it's a direct denunciation of Western individualism, which often isolates the self.
It asserts an egalitarian idea of selfhood.
Recognizes the inherent divinity, the interconnectedness of all individuals, black, white, poor, rich. It's a declaration, I am you, you are me, we are all one in Jah. This discourse actively constructs a language, a practice of healing, directly challenging racial inferiority, unequal power, uneven resource distribution.
Fostering community, empowering creativity.
Fosters communitarian existence, empowers the oppressed to be creative, not just imitative, in shaping their own destinies. It's a fundamental reimagining of human relationships.
That's profoundly transformative. Now let's look at a concrete historical example. Rastafari's significant yet complex role in the Grenada Revolution, 1979 to 83. A crucial cautionary tale, you said.
A very cautionary tale. Rastafari played a significant role in conscientizing Grenadians, awakening them against Eric Gary's dictatorial regime in the 70s. Many Rastas even actively participated in the People's Liberation Army that overthrew Gary in '79.
Right. Horace Campbell observed they could be mobilized for revolution.
Yeah, he noted that young Rasta brethren showed that with ideology and organization, the Rasta can be mobilized to participate in a revolution. Initially, Maurice Bishop's People's Revolutionary Government, PRG, seemingly embraced Rastafari, integrated them into the armed forces, offered opportunities. Freire himself called Grenada one of the world's beautiful moments, seeing his theories in action.
But that initial alignment didn't last.
It proved fragile. Rasta involvement faded as the revolution progressed. Why? Because Rastas, accustomed to constant critique through reasoning, continued to criticize the PRG's growing authoritarianism, its centralization of power, its moves away from truly participatory democracy.
And this is where Freire's analysis is chilling.
It provides a chilling lens. The PRG ultimately lost communion with the masses, essentially reimposed a culture of silence by turning away from the people towards Soviet and Cuban metropolitan centers for ideological and material support, became less rooted in local needs. local voices.
They failed to absorb popular dissent, that continued reasoning.
Exactly. Grenada illustrates the practical difficulties of integrating such a deeply rooted, critical popular movement into state politics, especially when leadership loses touch with its base, sacrifices internal dialogue for external alliances. It underscores that true liberation needs continuous internal dialogue, self-reflection, genuine participation from all strata of society, not just a change in who holds power.
A powerful lesson. Okay, moving to our final section. Let's explore the often underestimated role of women in Rastafari, asserting their identity, their agency, in ways that defy simple stereotypes.
Yes, Loretta Collins-Colobau's analysis critiques that early literature for narrowly portraying Rasta women as peripheral, passive, just adherents to a male-dominated movement.
But contemporary research shows a more complex picture.
Much more complex. It highlights the complexity of women's experiences, their active negotiation of roles and power within Rastafari.
Identifying the Rasta woman as rebel.
That's the term. Tafari Ahmad's foundational work on the 1989 Gender Relations in Rastafari project showed women actively challenging male dominance, affirming independence. Operating along this dynamic continuum from traditional acceptance to fierce, active questioning of patriarchal norms within the movement. They're not a monolith. Their agency is expressed diversely.
And their perspectives, often rooted in Black feminist thought, differ from some Western feminism.
Significantly differ, often. While mainstream feminism might primarily seek access within existing patriarchal systems, Black feminist writers in the diaspora foreground those concurrent oppressions: race, class, gender, sexuality, imperialism.
All interconnected.
All interconnected. Rastafarian women practice a livity, that holistic way of life, that doesn't just critique exploitation but fundamentally exposes it, seeks to build alternatives. Recognizing true liberation must encompass all these struggles.
And they powerfully express this agency through art, reaching a global audience.
So artistic expression, yes. In reggae, singers like Rita Marley, the formidable Judy Mowatt, who boldly called herself a roaring lioness.
A roaring lioness.
And the ever-incisive Sister Carol. They use their platforms not just for entertainment, but to assert Rasta identity, promote Pan-African awareness, battle repressive regimes. They reclaim titles like sister, daughter, mother, queen, imbuing them with dignity, urging consciousness-raising education. Sister Carol famously saying, "Intelligence is the key to freedom."
And Sister Carol directly challenged men, too.
Doesn't shy away. Challenges men for mistreatment, slackness, urging them to be progressive, to detox from negative behaviors, using her lyrics and a direct call for internal reform, accountability.
Dub poetry is another platform.
Crucial platform. Poets like Jean Binta Breeze seamlessly integrate reggae rhythms, Creole language to address deeply personal, systemic issues. Her poem, Baby Mata, for instance, unflinchingly addresses abandonment by Rastaman. Other works openly challenge male privilege, express profound frustration with Black sexism within the community. Not easy conversations, but vital.
And this extends into novels, giving these complex female experiences more narrative depth.
Absolutely. Masani Montague's Dread Culture, Zindika's Daughter's Grace. They feature strong Rastafarian female protagonists navigating deep disillusionment with practices like polygyny, domestic abuse, homophobia within the movement itself.
And questioning male interpretation of scripture.
Sheba, a character in Dread Culture, famously questions internally a thought many might share: how is it that it's always men that interpret the scriptures? That simple question challenges the very foundation of patriarchal religious authority.
These novels courageously explore controversial topics, then.
Pushing the boundaries of what can be discussed openly in the Rasta community. Female friendships become crucial, private spaces for discussing problems, offering mutual support, fostering collective agency, even when public discussion might be taboo for fear of dishonoring the movement.
Exploring things like reproductive rights, lesbian experiences within Rasta.
Daring to explore those issues, yes. Like a woman's right to procreative decision-making, the experiences of Rastafari-affiliated lesbians, despite potential ostracism. Akila in Dread Culture makes the deeply personal choice to cut her locks, divorce her dread, faces suspicion, but is powerfully defended by Sheba, highlighting complex internal dynamics, support networks that allow women to assert their choices.
What an incredible journey we've taken today. We've really journeyed through this multifaceted world of global Rastafari, from its Caribbean origins to its incredibly diverse expressions. Cuba, Brazil, New Zealand, the North American diaspora. We've seen how it adapts, resists, inspires, constantly redefining itself while holding on to core principles of identity, liberation, spiritual insight. It's truly a living, breathing movement.
This deep dive, Using that 2008 Globalization of Rastafari IDAZ Vol 7 volume as our guide, really reveals Rastafari not as some static doctrine, but as that living, evolving orthognosy,
Right.
a dynamic way of life continuing to challenge Babylon, create spaces for dignity, self-determination worldwide. The studies highlight its constant internal reasoning, its long legal battles over sacred practices like ganja, and the powerful, often unacknowledged agency of women within the movement. It's a testament to its enduring relevance.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Considering this rich, diverse, often contradictory picture of Rastafari across the globe, its ongoing internal debates on everything from ganja to gender roles, local adaptations to universal principles.
What new forms might Rastafari take in the coming decades? As it continues its journey towards Mount Zion, wherever Zion may manifest for its adherents.
And maybe more broadly, what can you learn from this movement's persistent quest for self-actualization, collective liberation, spiritual truth in our ever-globalizing world? How might their reasoning, their I philosophy offer a different path to understanding connection and resistance in your own life? Something to think about.